All right, remember when I said all those M and St hoppers that I got for dirt cheap? I don't know how many I got. 10. Cost me maybe 20 bucks. Not even sure if it costs that much. So I did one of them. Now, and this is since the previous videos. A couple hours. It's not the only thing I worked on today. But I went ahead and I did just a couple things. And this here is what I got. So let's take a look and compare. Let's compare this one to here's an identical one. They are both Bachmann. This plastic is like unpainted. And it's got these trucks on it. Here's what's cool about it. Okay, so they don't take a lot of work because they have coupler mounting things here. So Katie's drop in, just like that. And I put Tai Chi trucks on here. I love Tai Chi trucks. I love Tai Chi roller bearings. And once upon a time, I got this huge bag full of wheel sets, probably from various Athens. Somebody replaced all their wheel sets with metal. And they had this huge Ziploc bag full of them. So I got them. So you can order the Tai Chi trucks. It's like 10 bucks for 10 pairs if you get them without wheel sets. So I got a whole bunch of those a long time ago. So here's what I did. So I ended up with this. And that is exactly the way I like them. Let's put them on the track. In fact, let's drop down and get a look at basically about track level there. There we go, Dan. Yeah, something like that right there. Right? Okay. Okay. So now let's zoom out a little bit. Okay. And I have not yet. So on my railroad, when I finish off a car, I always put reflectors on it. And on these, I will probably put yellow. Yeah, I know, it's not prototype. These don't exist in the future. I model the future, but in my future, people didn't scrap cars at 50 years. They rebuilt them a little bit and kept running them. Shortage of cars. So there is what it looks like out of the box. This one is actually out of the box, brand new. Never been used. Okay. And here is what I was talking about that I thought I could make them look super cool. So what did I do? Well, they're kind of glossy. And once I washed it with soap and water, they're very glossy. So I used a little Tamiya panel liner just on these two these couple riveted ribs, and then just a little bit on the end here and there. Not much. Then I went ahead and I painted the inside Rust-Oleum camouflage brown and the underside camouflage brown. I painted my trucks with a more rust-colored brown, because I didn't want them to match exactly. I want them to be slightly different. You gotta have some contrast. Okay. So what did I do next? All right. So I did the panel liner. It took a few minutes for it to set up, and then I went ahead. Once I got basically I just ran a big ass piece of tape around there and painted the bottom camouflage brown, inside camouflage brown, and that dries in like 5 minutes. It was good to go. And then I coated the whole thing with matte, Rust-Oleum matte clear. So then I went back and I dry brushed burnt umber craft paint. You know that 79-cent paint? I dry brushed it all around. Then I went ahead and I dry brushed metallic silver, also of that cheap 79-cent paint, and got the rivets to stand out just a little bit, just enough. And then I got a little bit of a metallic effect on the inside. If I want to put a load in there, I can, but if it's empty, which it's really lightweight, so there's like hardly any weight on this thing. So to mount the trucks is really easy. I found that what I needed to do was, one, the screws. These screws are too big for these kind of trucks. So I've got all these little number 2 brass screws. I did have to tap it, and I took my cutter, one of these little cutters like this, and I cut off the mounting, the pintle, and I put a washer in. It was the right height. And I put some Katy couplers on it. Now when I do couplers like this, what I do, this particular batch of couplers are like super glossy. And what I do is I take graphite, same old Pinewood Derby tube graphite, and I've got it in a little jar like that. I used to just dump it on the workbench, but it started getting super messy, so I've been putting it in this jar. Then I take a little paintbrush like this, and I dry brushed the trucks, which were really quite brown orange color. I just dry brushed them. It gives a little metallic effect. The wheel sets I had already prepared a long time ago. I got a ton of them sitting out. I painted their ends with graphite. I also ran the truck tuner in one of these things. I ran that. You know, you don't have to switch it around and do both sides. You only need to do, put it in once for each axle. You don't need to just flip it around. And that worked perfect to fit the Athearn wheel sets, which have graphite on the end, so they spin nice and free. But what I like to do is I like to take my trucks over this, or my couplers over this, and I like to dry brush them with graphite. And the reason I like to do this is there's a layout that I operate on, and a lot of the couplers are painted rusty. They're painted pretty realistically, but they often have trouble coupling to each other because it's a matte finish and they don't want to couple right without help. Since I do the graphite, my couplers always couple perfectly. And as you can see right there, I have an under-track magnet on my workbench right here. So all of my Katy couplers, and I've got some McHenry's and some other stuff too, and some Bachmann Easy Mates. I always make sure that they work on this thing. So all of mine work. They always pass the test with the coupler gauge. So the pins always pass over this little shelf here. They pass over that just perfect. And then because they're graphite coated, they couple nice and easy. And then we end up with this. I put like no money into this. I put very little time into it. Most of the time I sprayed it and waited 10-15 minutes while I did other stuff. And then I dry brushed it. And I can still dry brush a little more graphite. I use metallic silver, but I can dry brush some graphite on there. Graphite gives a very neat metal effect. You can dry brush that on all you want, get a cool metal effect. But now I've got something. I told you this was going to stand out, and it already looks like it does stand out. See, this looks totally toy quality, but this, that isn't bad for me putting no money into it. I put nothing into it. Those trucks I had left over, and I have tons of them left over from other projects, and I keep them and I use them. I love those Tai Chi trucks, so I keep a stockpile on hand. But when I get the whole train of these together, all 10 of them, it's going to be pretty sweet. Now, they have roller bearing trucks on them. And I don't consider what I do weathering at all. All I do is sharpen. By sharpen, it means make the details stand out just a little bit. Because I don't like rust buckets. I like stuff that's vivid. So I made it vivid. Doesn't have a bunch of rust streaks on it or nothing. It just looks cool. That's what it's supposed to do. It's supposed to look cool for the sake of being cool. Listen, not everything on your railroad needs to be a $50 freight car. Sometimes, and with these, safety in numbers. Whatever you think about one of them, when you see 10 of them together, it's very hard to say they don't look good. And they stand out, and that's what I love. Now, other thing that I will do later, I'm going to add reflectors. I found out that by adding real reflectors to my stuff, I love that. I love that effect. You got to see it in low light to really appreciate what real reflectors do. And so I buy reflector strips and I cut them up with a little chopper or scissors, and I'll add a few reflectors on here. Sometimes I do white ones, sometimes I do yellow ones, and on locomotives I do white or I do silver and red. But I think this one's going to get yellow ones. I could do white because it'll all match, but you need some contrast. Right? You need some kind of contrast to make a cool story about it. And now, I'll tell you what. This made that purchase at the train show for, like I said, next to nothing. These were in the $4 for $5 box. And it looks pretty cool. I put couplers on it. I have a huge stockpile of couplers, so I really don't count that as costing me anything. I was going to use them on something anyways. And so here's another one that will be done. What I'm also going to do is, now that it's complete, I don't want to go through and renumber all these, because I don't have to. One of the things I learned in the Army is when we had shipping containers to, once we moved our whole brigade over to Iraq, our shipping containers, we had these giant stick-on things that stuck a big white piece of stick-on stuff with the number and all the data and crap on it on our shipping containers. That's how I'm going to do these, and a bunch of other stuff that I have. I'm going to stick just right over this. I'm not going to cover it up or nothing. Stick a great big thing which has its whatever number it's going to turn out to be. Put my reflectors on, and I'm good to go. I'm good to go for operations. I'm not trying to be realistic. I'm trying to have something that looks cool and that is easy to identify. That's what I love about it. And you can see right now how it's gleaming on the inside from where I dry brushed that metallic silver. Turned out nice. This train is going to look sweet.